Okay, welcome back again.
We're still in the Matrix. Hello,
We're
everyone.
still in the Matrix. Yes, no escape. Me and Nikolai were just talking for like the last hour about a million different things, but fear not, as I got a whole bunch of different questions, which again, in some roundabout ways, I saw where you started to touch on little elements, and I was holding back, thinking, well, I better not break the seal on any of the questions. So here's what was top of mind, and I was thinking this could be useful for the audience as well. And it was really about like dealing with negativity, right? Especially when we think about life events, world events. You know, you and me were just talking about expansion with the energies of the fire horse and Jupiter. And so kind of where I wanted to start the conversation was through the lens of the matrix and your wisdom. Where do negative thoughts come from, and what is their purpose? Like when we look at negative thoughts through that matrix lens, are the thoughts ours? Are those negative thoughts the collective? Are those negative thoughts coming from ether, soul level?
Mm-hmm. Great question. So I'd say I'll cover three core scenarios that are very important to have a distinction of, and I'll start with the simplest one, and you've kind of touched on this. Right now, most of the population lives in highly populous, dense environments, and thoughts and feelings are energies. And they're not, people think all that exists in our head, but they actually exist in our fields. So the way a human is wired, we have physical body, around that we have etheric body, and the next body is called emotional body or astral body, and the next body is called mental body. So all that happens in those energetic bodies. Now there's a bunch of technology to take photos of that, measure what it's part of, so-called aura. And aura has multiple other bodies, but we'll focus on those ones because it's related to the question. So as people produce all types of feelings and thoughts, it exists in this energetic field, and those bodies, depending on how small or large the soul is, or how advanced or young the soul is, those bodies of a different size. And emotional and mental bodies could be thousands of kilometers. And so imagine you're sitting in an apartment building, and even if it's not thousands of kilometers, it's 100 meters, all the 100 people who live in an apartment building overlapping with their emotional and mental bodies. And hence, everybody's sharing. It's kind of like having energetic sex with everyone in your building, which probably not something you would choose to, not everyone would be in your taste or preference, and etc. But yeah, exactly. But that's exactly what's happening. So as a result, a lot of thoughts and feelings are not even ours, and that's why it is so difficult, or it becomes a challenge with multiple asterisks at it, of awakening in highly populous environments. And that's why a lot of people, like everybody has friends who, like, as they start going through this so-called awakening process or figuring out who they are, what's going on with them, and etc., they withdraw from the society. They start going more to the nature, or like start going to all types of retreats, move somewhere, and etc. And that's just intuitive. And I highly, when we work with clients, I tell them the following thing: you either relocate from a big city to the nature, or you have to do a lot of energetic practices to stabilize yourself and cleanse yourself of energies of others, like meditation, yoga, and etc. Of course, a lot of people are lazy to do like 1 to 2 hours of yoga meditation every morning and afternoon. The easier solution is to move to cleaner, energetically cleaner environment. So it's like pick whatever you prefer, you know. Best, of course, is to do both, but there is an easy one. You just move to the nature, so you can start feeling yourself more. So you start finally, oh, this is mine, and I actually have to deal with this. So that brings me to the second point. So second reason of having negative thoughts, feelings, etc., is just all of them are purely distortions in our energetic systems. Think of it as plumbing in the house. And the plumbing somewhere gets blocked and the water doesn't flow, so you start getting a flood, or you don't get water somewhere, right? So that's exactly what happens with energetic channels. Since we're energetic beings, yes, we have the denser part of our energy is this physical body. At the end of the day, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, atom, electron, proton, and etc. energy. But we keep forgetting about that. So we're energetic beings. The energy flows in a specific way, same as we have like a great way to mimic that is we have the nervous system and blood vessels. So there are actually energetic channels that look similarly. They in Indian Vedic knowledge they call them nadis, and there are pictures if you search energetic channels, or if you look at like Chinese traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture and etc. When they're putting these needles in, they're just hitting energetic channels. And yes, they're hitting the physical elements of that, like nervous system, but they are actually aligned with those energetic channels. So when energetic channel is not working properly, it gives an indication to us by creating a feeling or a thought. So it's like, and if that feeling or thought recurs, then we have to pay attention. So if we wake up and every time we feel like anxious, 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 or like greedy, 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 greedy. It's like, oh, I'm so tired feeling greedy or anxious, like I want to do something about it. So it motivates us to figure out what to do with it. And if we look deeper into why there are distortions in energetic channels, uh, it's our worldview. Because at the end of the day, this universe, well, the way some describe it, and I'll use that description, it's all a thought. It was created with a thought, and it is a thought. It's consciousness, and consciousness is just a specific type of energy that we can describe in a human construct as a thought. And anywhere where we have a thought, and I'll also add a feeling, or a feeling that is not congruent or aligned with universal laws. And let's talk about what universal laws. Universal laws are just fundamental parameters of how energy is supposed to flow in this universe through all spaces, through all cosmos, through all planets, through all stars, through all the beings populating those planets around the stars. So universal laws just said the energy flows harmoniously this way in this universe. So anywhere where the thought does not align with that flow, it means it doesn't flow properly in us. So to give you an example, if somebody has aggression, there's a high chance of that aggression being expressed towards other life, hence killing or hurting other life. Universal law number one, protect life and life's evolution. So it's not congruent with original parameter of how energy is supposed to flow, which is at a level of a thought. That type of thought of aggression, of hurting somebody, is not congruent with a parameter of universal law number one. So basically, so wherever we're not aligned with universal laws in our worldview and attitude, that's where that creates those distortions or blockages in energetic channels. So that's why when people go into spirituality, sometimes they get lost thinking or feeling that they have to do all these spiritual practices like meditation and yoga, and that's how they fix themselves. In reality, actually doesn't do anything. It just calms them down so they can start noticing those distorted worldviews. And in reality, what needs to change is your worldview. So unless the worldview changes, those recurring negative thoughts or feelings won't disappear. However, what people don't notice, for example, a lot of people go through major awakenings or major harmonization and removal of major distortions in energetic systems through yoga, but they don't connect the dots of how it actually works. When they're doing specific type of stretch, because so first worldview, our thought, then it gets stored in energetic body. The distortion gets stored in energetic body, and then physical body has to mimic it because energy is fundamental. Else it creates tension, pain, or something else in one kind, in a specific type of muscle, organ, or whatever. So when you start stretching it, it brings up that thought. So in reality, if people observe closely, anybody who's practicing yoga, when you're stretching something, it triggers a thought, and the person starts thinking about specific situation. Let's say I'm stretching some of the muscles here in one of the yoga poses.
Hmm.
These muscles are related to a specific type of control towards future, towards controlling people, your environment, and etc. So as I start stretching, and like I'm pushing this muscle right now here, as I start stretching it in yoga, these thoughts regarding control starts coming up. And that's when they tell you, oh, breathe into the muscle so you release it. In reality, the thought comes up, and then you're like, why am I trying to control this situation? I'm just going to release it. And then the muscle releases and stretches. So that's what actually yoga does. It launches the same process of your review of worldview through your physical body. And hence, every modality does it slightly differently. So, for example, alcohol accelerates the flow of energy. And hence, when it accelerates the flow energy, whenever there are twists, you get shocks, and we see our distorted parts of our personality. Some people want to call their exes, some people want to beat up other people, and etc. The energy starts flowing faster. It's harder to control the distortions of your personality. They were always there. It's like if a person's fully harmonized, they can drink fuck ton of alcohol and they'll be in a complete zen and peace, because the energy will just flow fast, and there's like all channels are clean. There's not even the thought to call an ex or beat somebody up or to get depressed. So and every instrument or works differently. So that's the second part. The second part is, as those negative thoughts, feelings come up, as just an indication we have distorted worldview somewhere, and we need to give it some attention. So we actually adjust it so we're more aligned with the creator, which is universal laws. And the third piece is, once we've decided to align and we changed the worldview, we actually decided to change the worldview. We're like, okay, you know what? I'm not gonna be pissed. Like, I had karma around childish energy. I'm not going to be frustrated with children or adults that behave as children. And like I practice it, I decided, the more I decide, then what happens, everything that is not congruent with this new worldview, all the low vibration energy that has been suppressed and stuck in the body, needs to come out. So that brings me to the third piece, that a lot of people, that takes a lot of time for people to figure out. Because so you launch by changing your worldview, you launch the cleansing process of any remnants of the energy that is not congruent with this new harmonious worldview. But for that energy to come out, it lifts up, and you actually feel those thoughts and feelings, and people think they got worse, but in reality they didn't get worse. The energy is just passing through, because now it cannot be in you because your worldview changed. And that's where a lot of people, as they go through this healing process, get a little bit lost. It's like they do this healing work, and then they're like, they still have, like, let's say they healed this, the example I give, my example, like, I'm not frustrated with childish behavior. And then there's just, like, I could be sitting on a couch, and out of nowhere I'm just starting to get frustrated. I was like, why I'm getting frustrated? I thought I dealt with it. No, there was a bunch of it was suppressed, because as I went through life, as I like faced adults who became as children, or I faced children, I didn't know how to deal with it. So I created a bunch of suppressed feelings, thoughts that I didn't know how to process. And now they're coming out, but I'm sitting on the couch. There's no childish behavior in front of me. So it creates this confusion with, like, what is going on? So, and that's the third piece where you gotta, when you get to that third piece, the only way through is just to relax and allow things to come out. And that third piece is very important and critical because now a lot of cleansing, and always, and now it's even more, is being done by the system. Meaning, like, um, because the system on the planet has upgraded to like V6 matrix. Watch our previous episodes, not going to explain what it is. And there's like this new timeline that is positive constructive, plus all these energies, planetary energies, astronomical bodies, energies of astronomical energies aligning to go in positive. They're influencing everyone, and they're forcing to release all the stuff that is not allowing them to be the new version of themselves. So it's another way, I guess, of evolving a little bit backwards, but where the planet's vibration is increasing, and whatever is in a way of you increasing in vibration comes to the surface. So one way of evolving is also just surrendering and allowing the system to do your evolution, meaning all these energies will come to the surface, like all the vibration stuff, like, I don't know, anger, depression, apathy, greed, whatever is stuck in you will come to the surface if you're not resisting it, and if you're not trying, because when you're resisting it, you're giving it even more energy and you're trying to hold on to it. You're contracting your energetic channels. So it's the process moving slower, and it's going to make your life miserable. If you can just, okay, I feel that way. I allow this to pass through and out of me. If you're in this state of surrender, then the grander external system or surrounding system will cleanse you. But most people get scared. It's like, oh, I shouldn't feel angry right now, but I feel angry. What's going on? Resist. And the process doesn't come through. So where I'm going with this, if somebody learned this relax, I'll just sit on the couch, be relaxed, and like watch a TV. Like, some of those people evolve more than people who are doing 17 spiritual retreats a year. uh, because now the overall grander system and vibration increase, and it's pushing all that out, and like, yeah, okay, watching Netflix, oh yeah, I'm angry right now, okay, I'm angry, oh, I'm like, I feel sad right now, okay, I feel sad, and they just allow it to pass through.
It's so funny. And I'm just going to read the question that I had, but you really went right into one of the things I was going to ask you, which was, and maybe there's a little more to add to it. I'm not sure, but yeah, it was as we move to matrix V6 and planetary resonance increases, does negativity or negative thoughts simply vanish? Right?
Ultimately, yes.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, can they not exist in a high vibration world?
Yeah, they can't, because the basically the whole environment is high vibration. And in a previous episode, to the previous episode, I've attached, and I'll reattach it to this episode, the link to vibration of feelings. And all the low vibration feelings, I think below 23 hertz, and then neutral, I think, is 23, but then it becomes like optimistic, I don't remember, whatever, and it goes to like bliss and all those states, right? They rapidly increase in vibration. So from a standpoint of view of physics, it's like water and oil. Like, you cannot mix them. It's like it separates. So that's what we're experiencing. So that's why people who have any suppressed low vibration feelings, thoughts stuck in them, they won't be able to stay on this planet. Either they die or they deal with that low vibration energy. So dying mean like the water pushed out that avatar, the oil, right? It doesn't fit the new environment, you know. So yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned, like, not suppressing negative thoughts, right?
Yeah.
And I know you tend to get the idea, at least from a lot of different people, right? That the utopia is controlling your negative thoughts. Do you think it's do you think it is controlling your negative thoughts, or do we just let the negative thoughts run free, so to speak, right? Because you'll have a lot of different people, like, even if you look at Ryan Holiday and everything that he talks about, where it's like, well, everybody likes to talk about stoicism as sort of the antidote to negativity, but
That's
th-
escapism.
that's what I was going to say. It always seems like there's a a suppressing of the emotions to maintain that stoic state, right? Where it's like,
Pretending.
well,
Yeah.
we're going to put on the mask and pretend that these things aren't actually bothering us. So is it a utopian fantasy to think that you can actually control negative thoughts?
You can't control them, and that's it is a utopian thinking. The more you try to control them, the more energy you give them, the stronger they become.
Is
So
it
the
like the
only
pink elephant?
tell me more about pink elephant.
Well,
Don't look at the pink
if I
elephant.
say don't think of a pink elephant, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Literally. So the only way through is number one step: accept. Accept. Oh, there is anger in me. There is greed in me. There is sadness in me. That's the first step. That way you stop sending energy there. But everybody grew up being taught by parents, schooling, Hollywood, friends, it's bad to feel bad. Hence, we need to resist. It's so deeply ingrained, and hence everybody's running like chickens without heads, trying to avoid low vibration energies or low vibration feelings and thoughts. But to be able to process them, you first have to accept that they are in you. Okay, I'm sad. And then brings me, by the way, to the next point. Some people actually nail that part really well. They accept. And I saw that actually among women, women who we worked with. They have this tendency, so they learn that you shouldn't suppress and you should sit with it. And they start sitting with those feelings. And those feelings and thoughts are looping and looping and looping, and they're sitting and they think they will self resolve. In that scenario, they don't self resolve. The worldview and world attitude has to change for them to stop looping. So they learn the first part of acceptance and surrender, and then they sit in this energetic marsh or like energetic soup, and there's keeps cooking and cooking, and they're like, "Why is not going away? I'm accepting. I'm feeling them. I'm feeling into them." Yes, you've done the first part, but the second part is to ask if it's looping. The second part is to ask, why is it looping? What is it in my worldview to keeps it looping? How do I need to harmonize worldview and world attitude to stop it from looping? And then that part is missing. Whereas for men, they try to analyze it and change the worldview without accepting. So they start on a different part because men are more aligned with mental field and women more aligned with emotional field. And because they never accept it, they can never actually change it because they try to change it through resistance. So they change it tiny bit, but give more energy for it to become stronger. Whereas women accepted it, said, okay, it is within me. I'm feeling it with all my body, but don't go to the next step. Okay, what does it mean and what I need to change?
I think I do both.
Well,
I think I
everybody
sit
does
in the soup
both.
and I analyze.
Everybody does both, but there's more predisposition because men and women have both masculine and feminine. So
Yeah.
when I talk about the predispositions, there is a higher chance for women to do the first step well and not do the second. There is a better chance for men to do the second step well and not to do the first.
Yeah, it's interesting though to realize that the compass is always pointing to, well, what is the worldview, right?
It is always.
And could we also interchange worldview with belief system or identity, or
Yes.
how would you say use worldview?
Yeah, so worldview encapsulates all of those beliefs, principles, identity. Because let's say you have an identity of a Republican, one of
Hmm.
types of identities, right?
Yeah.
Republican working in Microsoft in IT, living in San Francisco, etc., etc., etc. Now you've just loaded a bunch of identities, and each of them have subset of values. And many of those values are not congruent with universal laws. For example, like Republican, I'm against Democrats, many of them, not everyone. Whereas in reality, every shape and form of life has a place to exist. Like Democrats have a place and a form to. There is a reason for them, right? So whereas you're trying now to push the extreme ones want to kill Democrats. That's breaking universal law number one. So like they miss the deeper essence of when they put all these labels. When people put all these labels on themselves, they're adopting this they adopting the worldview of that energetic structure, of that construct, and it becomes theirs. And many of those energetic structures or constructs are now fully aligned with universal laws. And then the person is surprised why they're not aligned, because, well, it was never my identity, but by you, let's say, becoming a Republican, you inherit all the garbage of a Republican. So hence, where we're really going as a planet is individual sovereignty. So I am Nikolai is a unique mix of energies that flows in a specific way in alignment with universal laws, and I express myself and my creativity from a place of here and now. I feel full of energy and strong, and from that place, I choose to partner with Mitch to record this podcast because we have fun when we're doing it, and that's the place we're going to. Versus, oh, Mitch is Christian and I'm Christian, hence we should do something together, and like very very weird place to start things from.
Yeah. So in the big picture then, because like just the example that you gave, like if we're Republican and you're attached to
Yeah,
that identity, in all these bigger identities, I guess we could say are all egregores, right?
yeah, they're all
Yeah.
egregores. Like even
So
like in a Nike brand, you
yeah,
take on identity of Nike brand.
yeah. So how do we then systematically cut the ties to these egregores, or is that what we need to start doing
Mm.
to start being more aligned with ourselves?
And what's interesting, so when people start understanding the world is energetic, the first step is always, how do I cut the ties so that the things stop controlling me? Same, they want to cut the ties with their exes, or with like I don't know, egregors, companies,
Yeah.
corporate brands. You can energetically you can cut it, same as you snip the wire, but then it regrows because and the reason it regrows is because it comes back to worldview. So while your worldview has something that egregor has in resonance with, let's say uh, strongly being against some type of people. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you fall into political system. Pick to be Democrat or Republican, because until you have that, you will easily fall under influences either party. It doesn't matter, because politics is all about. Most of the politics became about this competition, one against the other, or few against each other versus collaboration. So while there is this distortion in the worldview, any egregor that has that energy will automatically plug in. It's like a perfect use. Like, let's say this competition, unhealthy competition, is USB-C, and the egregor is working with another. This one is female, and this one is male. And it's working with male USB-C and looking at any person that it can plug into, and it does plug into. So that's why anytime you cut it, it just plugs in again, plugs in again. So what you do, you remove in you that plug. You're like,
Mm.
no, I don't need to compete unhealthily. Like, we can co-create, we can collaborate. I choose this as my new worldview. That USB-C does not exist anymore. So it comes and it goes like, uh, and falls off, and it doesn't bother you anymore because there's nowhere to plug in.
Mm. Got it. Got it. That brings me to another little offshoot that I wanted to go into, which is this idea of cascading negative thoughts. Okay.
Mm, yeah.
And I remember I first got introduced to, again, a new sort of worldview when I read uh Transurfing from
Mm.
Vadim Zealand, right?
Vadim Zeland. Yeah.
And and he mentioned this concept of pendulums, right?
Yep.
And and are or is the idea of the cascading negative thoughts and cascading negative experiences, because we've all sort of had the experience where one thing goes wrong and then fucking everything starts to go wrong, and it's like the
Yeah.
proverbial
Yeah. Yep.
little snowball that you would see in the cartoons where they put the snowball at the top of the hill and then it starts
Yeah.
rolling down. It gets bigger and bigger and
Yeah.
bigger, right? And it could be a little thing is like you spill coffee on yourself. You're like, oh fuck, and your attitude, your mood switches. You get negative, and then suddenly, as you're walking out the door, some shit happens, and then you go down the street, and something. It's like it's a snowball. It's like fuck, what happened? And I know Vadim talked about it in terms of, well, once you once you have that negative energy, the pendulums get a hold of you, so to speak, right? And
Hmm.
then you're stuck in this spiral of negativity. What's your thoughts on that, and what is behind the spiral of negative events or experiences that tends to keep replicating itself in a short span of time once the snowball starts going downhill?
Well, we are creators of our reality, right? And the matrix is just a mirror, and we create the reality with the energy that we second thermodynamic law or second universal law, whatever you put out, you receive.
Hmm.
You get triggered initially, and you start blowing up. Oh, I spilled the coffee. Fuck! What a shitty day. That's exactly what you're going to receive, a shitty day. So if you don't stop that, and people try to stop that by resisting, versus the fastest way to stop is accept, oh, yeah, I spilled the coffee. What is the learning for me there here? Because usually there will be some kind of learning, not always, but most of the time. So you're like, okay, I'm angry right now. Yeah, I'm angry that I spilled coffee. So you've already stopped, because when you resist, you expand that feeling. It becomes more anger, more anger. You step outside. Matrix is a mirror. Some dude is walking by and screams at you or punches you, even worse, right? So that's why it's so important. Accept, understand what is going on. What is this spilled coffee telling you? Like it could be, as an example, um, it could be some people are working in your scenario, working. You're going through karma of working with material energies, energy of money and material wealth, right? Some person might think with similar karma or similar energy, they're learning that, oh, by I spilled it on this expensive shirt, and I really like this shirt, and I damaged it, and like the person is attached to the material, and they're like, it's okay, I'll clean it. If I don't clean it, I'll buy a new one. So that's going to be their learning. For me, it would play out very differently. For me, the energy is around being triggered by childish behavior. I would see that childish behavior in me and get frustrated with myself. So you're like, oh, it's okay. I spilled it. Okay, I was clumsy at this moment, but it doesn't mean anything. By stopping it and choosing not to react, I overwrite my neural network in my brain, which is I'm overwriting my worldview. That is okay to make mistakes or be clumsy at times and etc. And then you actually stop being clumsy. So hence the key is you accept, you reflect. How's it helping you evolve your worldview? And then you stop the cycle. You walk out of the door, and you don't get intensified further experience for you to recognize that.
Mm. Yeah, because I was going to ask you, like, what is the fastest way to shift out of negativity? And is it simply, well, okay, we start with just accepting the event as it is, and that starts to immediately shift
So
the negativity?
I would even add, for people who haven't developed the muscle of acceptance yet, I would start with breath work. Breath work is one of the most powerful tools to modulate your neurochemicals in your body. So the first step, pick a breath work that works for you. For example, square breathing, like inhale 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds, exhale 4 seconds, inhale for etc. etc. Square breathing is great at that. So you do that 5 to 10 times. You've just reset your nervous system. So it is easier now to go into acceptance, then you do the acceptance. And ultimately, I believe we touched on in a few previous episodes, I started doing this meditation activation. And so a lot of people, the reason people struggle to meditate is because of lack of acceptance. So when a person sits and closes their eyes, and the reason they want to run away from there, because they start facing some kind of thoughts, feelings, or physical sensations that they don't like. Hence, they want to get out of the meditation. And that's why people cannot meditate for, like, I don't know, longer than 5 minutes. They face, and thoughts, feelings, and sensations in the body are just types of energies. And since most people were taught to resist low vibrational energies, hence they want to escape it. So in this meditation activation, and by the way, it's donation based. You can put whatever amount you want to put and schedule, and you'll get this activation. Where basically what I do in this energetic activation, um, Nikolai is a being with all his parts, with his consciousness or soul and spirit have developed over a long period of time ability to accept any flavor of energy, either it's low vibration or high vibration. So in this activation, I energetically transfer that capability, like in Matrix transferring Kung Fu and whatever. And it's possible. That's, by the way, how a lot of like advanced Buddhist teachers work and etc. So if you study that knowledge, a lot of the knowledge and capabilities are transferred that way. And so basically, I transfer that capability, and every time you sit to meditate, it is easier for you to sit longer period of time. And every time you do it, the more you unpack that capability, and it becomes your superpower. Versus you could have spent many lives developing that superpower. It gets passed on. Now you just got to unpack it. So where I'm going with this, when you develop that capability, so once I like activated it, so it has been developed for me in many previous lives, and so I just needed to remember and fully unpack it and start using it correctly. Then it became so easy for me. Like something triggers me, I don't even need to do breath work. I just quickly self-modulate myself. Oh, okay, I'm super angry. And I go right away into acceptance. And as soon as I go into acceptance of being super angry, it just starts dissipating. It doesn't take over me. And then I start self-diagnosing. Why am I angry? What is it about my worldview that does not match the situation? Or what kind of inharmonious worldview does this situation bring up in me? So for example, spilling coffee, I could like start going hard on myself that I'm a child, but in reality, I'm like, no, you're just teaching me to be relaxed about different types of behaviors among children, adults, and etc. And there is a deeper reasons why they express those behaviors. So I become accepting towards those so-called childish behaviors.
Yeah, I like how just now you turned a little light bulb on, because whenever something negative happens to me, one of my default states now is to ask, okay, well, what's the lesson here?
Yeah.
So I'm really quick
But
to go into
first is
what's
to
the
accept
lesson,
and then the lesson.
right?
Yeah.
But their lesson is one thing, but now when you said worldview, it feels like another layer above. Like now it's operating from a whole different layer, because it's not just, well, okay, what's the lesson here, but what is the worldview that I'm holding that's inharmonious? And that
Yeah.
feels different, at least to me. Like if I'm sitting into that, I'm like, okay, well, that's a whole, because I could get the lesson, but the lesson wouldn't be the same as what is the inharmonious worldview. And that
Yeah.
feels like a much bigger piece of the puzzle to shift. Like that
That's
feels more
great. And one more
identity.
thing I would really underline before you start diagnosing, acceptance is critical. Unless you accept the current situation, the current state, inner state and external state, you cannot properly diagnose. Because it means when you don't accept something, it kind of feels like a mirrory energy. When you look at it, it just reflects, and you cannot see what's or like you can't really see into it. Whereas you accept, you're saying it is part of me, but since it's part of you, you can see everything within you. versus when you're saying, oh no, I'm not angry, or like fuck this, I'm gonna resist. Or it's like, oh no, I'm better than this, I cannot have such thoughts and feelings. Now you're basically separating that from you, hence you can't look at it because you made it, you externalized that feeling or thought, and you've kind of like, you're trying to pull it out, but it's not pulling out because it is part of you, and you blocked your ability to view into it. Versus when you say, okay, yeah, I'm angry, and then it's like release, and it's like, yeah, it's part of me. That's how I react in this situation. This worldview is part of me as of right now, and now you can like, oh, that's what it is. And it's in many scenarios, it almost becomes like funny. It's like, wow, I didn't even realize this thing lives in me. Okay, cool, I'll change it.
Yeah, because I've noticed, and I'm sure probably a lot of your listeners feel the same way. Like you could have an event happen and you're so close to it
Yep.
that you can't see the way out. Whereas an external person looks at you like you're crazy, like, oh, this is so easy. I can see it. Like,
Yep.
why can't
Well,
you?
because it's not their trigger. And
Yeah.
they're for and that energy, they're balanced, and they can easily see into it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
another thing I would recommend in those situations, if like this trigger happens in interaction with someone, which in most scenarios it does, because the best trigger are other humans, and because they're like basically our teachers. Uh, I had to learn to pause and to say, um, I'm triggered right now. I'm feeling, and in the beginning, I wouldn't even know what I'm feeling. So I would just say, I'm triggered right now. I just need a little bit of time. So why don't we pause, and like I'll go into my room, or we'll hang up the call, or whatever it is. Let's chat later. So I calm down, I analyze, and etc. And sometimes trigger can come as feedback. People can provide you feedback, and you're like, how could you say, like, you could say, thank you for feedback, I'll consider it, and then you can calm down and see if this is actually relevant feedback and how it integrates. So it's like a very important tool, like to pull yourself out from further accelerating the events and turning them even worse. You can just, oh, pause, I need to do some breath work, and I need to sit with it and reflect on it, and then you're basically accelerating your evolution, and it becomes easy. And once you've done that cycle a few times, you can, like, I started doing most of it without, with like only few interactions I would withdraw with, if it hits really deep and it's very strong energy, and I was like, okay, pause. Most of the scenarios, the energy started coming up, I know how to self-modulate. Okay, I accept I'm being triggered right now, and I just, like, while I'm continuing to have conversations, slowly observe how all that is unfolding in me and getting all the insights. So it's like almost like you get to a point where you have like a multi-core CPU processing unit where you can do multiple things at the same time to support a conversation, analyze your triggers, energies, and etc. And that's how advanced we can get. And then it becomes so easy and more enjoyable to go through triggering situations because you know how to deal with it without losing it.
Interesting. Talk to me for a second just about negative thoughts or negative thinking and electrons. Like,
Mm.
does the amount of electrons that
Negative thoughts
were
and negative feelings are electrons.
oh, okay.
That's it. And that's why another thing that you can help. So breath work modulates it. Another thing, if you're super revved up, take a hot shower. Anything that drops electrons will help you pull yourself out of the loops. So all of our muscles work on electrons. So any kind of HIT, high intensity workout training, like for example, you can just do jumping jacks, running on one spot, anything burns electrons very rapidly. And of course, the reason I suggested breath work, if you don't want to be doing jumping jacks in front of like other person or publicly, or while you're like in a suit or something like that, it's easier to do breath work. But all of the methods that exist out there to release or burn electrons apply to those situations.
So, for example, when we do something that's like a high intensity type of exercise, the scientists always are like, oh well, you're experiencing the rush of endorphins. It's all endorphins. But yeah, I was gonna say, like, is it really like that? There's this magical endorphins, or is it really that? Well, okay, we've just shed so many electrons that now we're starting to feel this different this different emotional state going on in our bodies.
It's both. There are endorphins, so we don't discount them. This is,
Hmm.
but in the first place, the first thing that happens, electrons get burned, so we start feeling more calmness and peace, and then endorphins more roll in as let's call it physical joy. Yeah, but both things unfold. And one more thing I wanted to add about the reason gyms and working out is so popular in the Western world and less popular, I'd say, in I don't know, in some village or Eastern world, is because most people in the Western world are less aligned, and they're less connected with their emotions. They don't know how to deal with them, and because when person less aligned and don't know how to deal with triggers, they're constantly accumulating electrons because they're constantly dissatisfied or triggered. If you're doing a work you're dissatisfied with, you're accumulating electrons. Hence, the only survival in the Western world is doing a bunch of physical activity. In reality, if everybody was aligned, only small subset of population needs to go to the gym or do physical activity, and those are the people who have strength and willpower as one of their dominating energy. I have strength and willpower as one of my dominating energy. I'm predispositioned to do sports or workouts and etc. But if I don't, and I've observed people who are aligned, they're like, you ask them, hey, why don't we go for a hike or gym or cycling? They're like, what is sports? I've never done it in my life, and I feel like no need of doing it because they don't have that energy. But now most of the population is so accumulates so much electrons because of misalignment or not knowing how to process triggers, so they actually stop being loops or repeating triggers, so they harmonize their worldview. They constantly accumulating electrons, so it's perfect business. You sell them gym membership, sport, any kind of sport experiences, etc., etc., etc. And as people get harmonized on this planet, what we'll see, small subset will be interested in those activities.
Yeah, and lastly, just because you touched on the East versus West idea, and based on what you've seen so far with the increase in vibration with the world, and obviously all the geopolitical events that are popping off left, right, and center,
Mhm.
what either country or section of the world or section of society do you feel has started to become the most aligned
Hmm.
with the new matrix coming online?
It's a great question. What I sense, it's pockets, and those pockets exist everywhere. There's higher predisposition for those pockets in a places where the let's call it some of the original matrix was preserved, like let's call it less damage, less distorted matrix. So like places that are just far away from human populations, like you go in the middle of Siberia, it will be easier for you to automatically be aligned because there was no mental or emotional activity of other humans. There's just nature. So there are. It was that said, I've been in New Zealand, and that energy of New Zealand is so distorted. Was so distorted. It was so much energetic stuff was done there that it's pretty nature, but the energy is like you want to throw up. So and it's like also not much per se human activity there, but there was different type of energetic activity that was unfolding there. So and the pockets right now. Yeah, I sense that they are all over the place. There's just some places are more higher predisposition for a pocket to form. So, for example, like in Eastern Europe, there are probably higher density of pockets because the vibration is like, even though the whole planet is increasing in vibration, but it's like almost not distributed equally. So if like we take like Eastern Europe versus let's say North America. North America, the attachment to the anything and everything material and everything related to it, like status and etc., is so deep. Hence, it's keeping the vibration down, vibrational levels. So it's harder for those. And the egregors there, like Republican Party, corporate brands, and etc., are so strong that it's like pushing the whole population, keeping the population like down vibrationally. So it's harder to emerge there. But once again, you go into like, I don't know, somewhere in Montana in the middle of the mountains, you in some like better preserved part of nature and energetic circuit, you'll be fine. So it's not like those spots don't exist, but just on average, it's harder. And the reason I'm comparing to Eastern Europe, in Eastern Europe, like I don't know, in Russia, you go like further far east, there's like no populations, just like taiga, like a forest that goes in every direction, bears walking around, you know. And at the same time, there's some other predispositions, like the reason, for example, many in the world or Western world doesn't like Russia as much is because there is this tendency in a Russian culture to be more connected to the spirit. So it's harder to buy everyone. And then, like, meaning like people will be willing to drop their jobs. Like if somebody tells you, hey, you lose this job if you don't oblige to these values, they're like, fuck you, fuck it. I don't need this job. I'll find another one. So it's like, it's a population that is harder to control. And that's why that part of the world or always needed kind of dictator type of leader, either a Tsar or like communist dictator, or currently the current version of it, right? So because those people are very strong-willed, and when the strong will is an indication of stronger connection to their energetic structure, part of their being, which is the spirit. So hence, in that area, those pockets are, I'd say, probably more spread and easier to establish because there are more people who have the predisposition to move or strive for sovereignty.
Mhm.
Um, so, yeah, that's basically my observation.
And if we're looking at the vibrations, because I just had this idea and I wanted to sort of workshop it with you. If we look at Western society, specifically, you know, the US, but I mean, all, I guess we would say Western society has similar underpinnings to the culture, right? In terms of materialism, right?
Yeah.
Consumerism, materialism. And, you had mentioned where, if we get sort of attached to the materialism, right? That inhibits our vibration or inhibits our sort of spiritual growth, right?
Hmm.
So does that egregor of the US, then, the concept of, that
American
monetary
dream.
life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, like ideals of consumerism, is that preventing people from ascending? And then if so, where do we find the balance between, the I love when all the spiritual people always talk about abundance, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Abundance,
yeah.
right? But it's like, between that idea that, okay, like I'm good, I'm comfortable, and then mm, maintaining your spiritual alignment or maintaining your upward trajectory. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It makes sense, and it's in that environment, it's very difficult to find that balance, and that's what you're kind of referring to, because all the structure of that environment and culture is a moving target. Let's say you bought a car that drives nicely and it's not broken. but now you need a new model, or you need a better car because a neighbor got a better car. So there's so many like deep subconscious entrenched values that keeps the person on a material treadmill, and it's so difficult to get off. And right before we hopped on the call, we've chatted about like there's nothing bad about material, but when you're in a harmonious, when you have harmonious view toward material, material world around us is there as instruments for our creativity and happiness. And what it means is, um, let's say if I need to record podcasts and that's part of my creativity, I buy myself a nice microphone. But I don't go on, let's say I buy a microphone that works well, doesn't break, has high quality sound. I spent whatever for this setup, 700 euro or something like that. But I could have spent 7,000 euro because there's a 5,000 euro microphone that is like for special recording studios. And if I buy it from a place to be cool or to show status with a little label on my microphone, that's where the distortion of the interaction with material world starts. Like, for example, when I was buying a car, I was observing myself, why am I being pulled to Mercedes? And then I was like, oh, there's still part of me that wants status. And Mercedes is considered status. And I was like, in reality, I don't like Mercedes. I don't like how it drives. Like the look, I kind of look, but I'm not super excited about. But I'm like being pulled to go to the dealership, right? And then I was like, oh, like I want to buy a car that serves me and gives me joy. So, and they're like, so I enjoy a lot driving convertible because basically this is California climate here. And I know that will honestly generate like a lot of joy for me. Then I was like, okay, what convertible? I could buy a Ferrari, I could buy Porsche, or like I could buy BMW, right? And then you start looking at why you would pick one over the other one. I was like, oh, I want Ferrari because I want to show off. That's it. That's already off. But if you like something specifically about Ferrari, let's say you're a car person, or like yeah, it's like part of your hobby, you're really involved, like, and part of your life is expressing yourself through building some types of systems, mechanical systems or whatever, and you really appreciate the way Ferrari engine is built, then you're buying it for like a true reason that gives you joy. I don't understand cars. I'm not a mechanic guy. That, like, how the engine is done does not give me any of true joy. The only reason I would buy Ferrari is to fucking show off, you know? So hence I buy BMW. It drives, it's like, it's safe, it's practical, it has 4 seats, it's like, and the list goes on. It's that version has been built for a long time, so it does not break, and I'm super happy. I get my joy of opening the roof. It goes, I don't need to service it. Like everything checks in, and that's the harmonious interaction with the material. But then also people picked up so many they created so many subconscious requirements of what the material should be for a happy life. I'll give a simple example from my life. The apartment I live in came with some furniture, and my coffee table is not to my liking. I don't like the design. It would just trigger the fuck out of me. Because Nikolai had a subconscious program how the furniture should look like. It's like, it's not scratched, it's not destroyed, it's just the design is super weird. It's like, to me, it's not design I would pick, right? And that initially, because I created how my coffee table, it should be stylish, it should be some kind of designer, blah, blah, blah. All that we picked up from scrolling Instagram, watching Hollywood movies, going to the shops, and now it created this program that interjects with being in a state of peace and joy just because the table does not match the Instagram tables, right? So, and I had to go through this and cleanse that, and now I look at this table. It's a pretty cool table. It's fine. It does the job, and it's actually far away from ugly. And I see beauty in it, but different type of beauty, functional beauty. It's so simple, and it it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. For me to put few decorative things, to put a cup of tea or water when I'm sitting on the couch. So like I start seeing this. Okay, would I get a different one as I buy furniture? Yeah, but I'll do it when I'm settling in the next place or the place I build and etc. and I choose it. But now that coffee table shouldn't be ruining my life. And for most people, it is because they're starting to live in the future. Oh, I'll be happy only once I build my own house and buy the coffee table I want. And that's where materialism went so deeply into subconscious that people don't even realize they're constantly living in a treadmill. And then, by the way, they get that coffee table, build their house, get the coffee table, and then realize that actually it's flat because there was they created so much tension around that. And when they're picking it out, it will be harder for them to pick out the one that will actually be functional and they will actually like. There's a high chance them picking out some brand and like making it look cool because I don't know, LeBron James has the same one in his villa wherever he lives, right? So and that creates all types of distortion on distortion on distortion. So material is simple. Does it like give us? It's an instrument and utility. Like I need to drive because you know I want to get from place A to place B to do things. So I bought the utility. Then I figured out what other aspects would give me additional joy and etc. And in the beginning, somebody might not have a budget, so start with a simple one. But it still takes you place A to B and be grateful for it. And as you continue your expansions through creativity, as you basically create more for the world, exchange the energy, then you're like in the beginning, like actually I never bought first of all new cars or expensive cars. I bought cars that worked well, were safe, and took me from place A to B, and I didn't need to service them much. Hence, I had like older Lexus that I drove for a very long time until I drove it off the road, and it was not very fixable. Hence, I needed to get a different car, But I was driving it for years, and it was like already so old, and it's like the only thing I need to change is oil and brakes and tires. That's it. And it worked for me, and because that part of life was not related to my creativity. If like I'm a mechanic and I'm like race driver and etc., hence I'm more predispositioned for that be important part of my life. Hence I would not just buy a utility car. I would buy something that's mechanically interesting and inspiring. So when I sit down, I can feel like every stitch on the seat and how it's designed and how the engine integrates with whatever other parts of systems. And that's another reason why we want one person buying an expensive car and they truly derive joy from it. And there's no energetic penalty because there's no low vibrational energy attached to it versus so many other people buying the same expensive car and they buy it from a place of showing off, greed, or like dominating status, whatever. And that becomes energetic anchor in their life. It starts causing issues or whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, one of the great things, and I really noticed it myself, I'm sure, well, you've lived in a whole bunch of different places, so I'd be curious to know when you first noticed it, but I can say definitively now that since moving here, I unplugged from the matrix in a lot of materialistic ways.
You can't even
was
buy
definitely
anything in this country.
What's that?
And you can't even buy anything in this country.
Yeah,
Anytime I come up with
great.
idea, I want to go shopping, I go, they actually don't sell much. Okay, never mind.
But you become so unattached to the need, right?
There's no need. It just disappears. It's not part of the culture.
It just disappears, and you realize, man, my life is still good. It's all okay, right?
This coffee table holds my cup. It's perfectly fine. And even if I wanted a coffee table, like most of the furniture kind of sucks here, I'm like, whatever. I don't care.
No, and I think one of the things that is great about certain technological innovations, like if we look at like our experience right now, okay, we live in the same city, so we can sit and have coffee, but we're doing this on Zoom, right?
Yeah.
Or not Zoom, but
Riverside,
we're doing it online.
Yeah.
And think about this. Now we're in a place where we can have almost like an energetic sovereignty. Yet if we choose, we can, I can talk to people in LA. I could talk to people in New York. I could talk to people in London,
Yep.
but I don't need to get sucked into the energy of that space. Right? I
Yeah,
can sit
exactly. And
here
it's really powerful.
and and because I remember coming from, smaller city at that time, Canada, where there wasn't so much. I mean, there was still a want for stuff, but certainly not like when I got to LA. And then I
Yeah, that
fought
got
it
magnified
forever in
like
LA, and
thousandfold.
eventually it won. Where it's like you feel suddenly like, well, I feel compelled to want this stuff because everybody else wants this stuff, and
Yeah.
everybody's telling me I need this stuff, and
And people start feeling if they don't want it, they feel something wrong with them because it's
yes,
such a dominating energy. If you don't want, then you're broken. Why are you even
yeah.
here? And people start thinking that it's a true value versus an illusionary value of a highly consuming market.
Well, and we are just breaking illusions left, right, and center here.
Yeah, and the beauty is when you connect with people in LA now, you can share that state that you experience here with them. So they're like, wow, how are you so smiling and relaxed with that crappy coffee table? To them, it's mind boggling. And then you're like, yeah, my life is spectacular. And then they see that and it challenges their worldview. And they start asking questions and they're like, how do I experience this joy and happiness while owning a crappy coffee table as a metaphor here.
Yeah, yeah. All right, my friend. Well, that's it.
Okay. Till the
Until
next one.